Café and Networking Podcast promotes entrepreneurs, startups, authors, business experts throughout the world. I'm Tom Reaoch, an American known as the King of Networking, connecting people and speaking from my studio in Vinhedo, São Paulo, Brazil. And today we talk with Dr. Robin Buckley. She's joining us from Rye in New Hampshire in the United States. Dr. Robin Buckley is an executive coach, helps high-achieving individuals thrive in their careers and relationships. She's an author, public speaker, and cognitive behavioral coach who works with executive women and high-performance couples. Robin, what are some ways powerful women can step into their powers?
Thank you for that question, Tom. The very first way is realizing that following the traditional standards for leadership and networking doesn't typically work for women. We try and force ourselves into those boxes, and it doesn't really tap into the strengths that we have. If we look at it from just that evolutionary cave person perspective, women were always the community builders. They were the ones that worked on supporting the tribe. That has not changed, but what has changed is how society views that as important or not.
Right.
And in traditional leadership or networking models, it is not seen as important. So women try and do things that aren't inherently their strengths, and they force themselves to try and be sometimes leaders that they aren't. And there's no reason for that, because I think that there is, I just don't think, I know that there is a lot of value in just looking at your individual strengths and then the collective strengths as females in general, and utilizing those to create a new model for leadership, a new model for networking, whatever that means in your life, whether you're the leader of your home or whether you're the leader of a Fortune 500 company.
Or a politician. We now have many countries out there in the world being led by women.
Absolutely. And we're seeing, that there are absolute benefits to having some of these powerful women, whether, in New Zealand or in our own White House, that these women are doing things because they're being authentically who they are. They're not trying to fit into that masculine model. And it's successful. And it's not that the masculine model is wrong. It's just that we can have different ways of considering what is leadership and what is networking, and they can work equally well.
Well, I agree with you, because I'm a man, but what I've seen is we've been taught to focus. And what women naturally have is peripheral vision. They seem to have a 360-degree vision. They have eyes behind their head. And I just interviewed a woman. We talk about intuition. You are intuitive. You have what men call gut feeling. You have intuition. And so those are skills. That's a knowledge that we as men can't even have.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, as I've watched over the past several years, and when male leaders, whether we're looking at the leader of Canada or the leader of the United States, and when they show those really human, emotional sides, there is, in general, people applaud that. But God forbid a woman does that, then she's weak or she's too emotional. And the disparity just doesn't resonate anymore. We're at a time when we can look at people and applaud their individual strengths and not define them as masculine or feminine, just that's who they are. And if it's leading change and innovation and progress, why can't we just see that as they're a terrific leader rather than they're a terrific woman leader or male leader?
So that's an interesting challenge, because you also work with relationship building in couples.
I do.
That should be fun.
It is a lot of fun. Yeah, I transitioned out of doing traditional couples therapy because honestly, it was hard. And there was too much of a focus on the past, which we can't change. There was too much of a focus on an emotional upheaval that distracts from strategic thinking. And so the individuals that I worked with in executive coaching were so good at using their business skills to be successful professionally. And when we started talking about relationships, when I developed this model, I kept saying to them, why can't you use what you do in business and apply it to your relationship and have the same level of success? And when we started framing that and they started pulling in concepts they knew so well professionally into their relationship, they saw progress and they had that same level of success.
Well, I think that's the plus side, if we can say the plus side of the pandemic, is the home office concept of couples not only working at home, but administering the family at home.
Yes.
And so that was, a learning situation for everybody. So it wasn't, I'm closing the door and going to work. No, the door is never open and we're here working.
Right. And there was an integration, which again is very similar to what women have been doing for a very long time, where it just always overlaps and always meshes. And I think a lot of men got that opportunity to see what it was like, but it also afforded me the opportunity to help couples, do things like they do in business, like delineation of roles, a clear delineation of roles, so they're not stepping all over each other, or looking at their KPIs in their relationship, their key performance indicators, to really have a way of evaluating where they are, knowing they're making progress, and knowing the areas that it would help to spend more time devoted to.
Well, I say you do have years of experience, but what I see, what you show, you're actually future and forward thinking.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because again, we can look at where we are now and how we want our present to be, and then we can make a plan for the future. And what a lot of couples don't do is that plan for their committed relationship. We spend in America $25,000 approximately and 250 hours planning our 8-hour day wedding.
That's here too. That's here.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'll ask couples, well, how much time and money did you put into planning your marriage?
Right.
And I get crickets, because they're like, what do you mean? We're like, well, we planned our wedding. I'm like, your wedding is not your marriage. And your marriage is supposed to be decades long. I mean, that's what most people go into a marriage thinking. And if you haven't devoted any time and money to it, what are you really saying about your plan?
Well, unfortunately, when they have the first child or get to the first year, then they figure out that they should have had a better plan.
Exactly. That's exactly how transitions rock people's worlds, and it doesn't have to be that way.
And if they're in business, even worse, then you have to not only separate the couple, you separate the business.
Exactly. Or if they're not in business together, the dissolution of their relationship affects them professionally. I mean, there is such a inability to separate that out when you're going through such a really painful situation. So why not have a proactive plan to avoid that, if at all possible? Seems like a logical plan to me.
Well, it is, and power to the women.
Love it. Yes.
Robin, I want to thank you for sharing your time and your experience.
Absolutely.
How can our listeners find you?
Sure. I am LinkedIn and Instagram, and then my website is drrobinbuckley.com. Same for both of my social media outlets.
Very good. So remembering our audience, it is Dr. Robin Buckley, and that's Robin. The last name is Buckley. And on LinkedIn, it's drrobinbuckley.com, and through other social media, it says ROBINBUCKLEY. Thanks again.
Thanks, Tom. This is great.
Café and Networking is brought to us by Focus MI Market Intelligence, an agricultural market research specialist in Brazil. More information on their website, focusmi.com. Thanks for listening. Until the next time here at Café and Networking Podcast.